writing instruction. And in 2025, that means writing instruction in the age of AI, which is a whole new challenge. And so that's what the focus of tonight's webinar is about. We're super excited to have you. We're going to go ahead and get started. Super excited to have you all here this evening. Um, Before we even get started, we do webinars every quarter. You should come to all of them. They're great. We've done awesome ones in the past. So we did one on formative assessment and where does assessment go from here in the age of AI with Dr. Dylan William, who I think is, for my money, one of the godfathers of modern K-12 formative assessment. All these will be linked in the slides, which I'll share, so you should go watch the recordings. We did one with the Writing Revolution team. We did one with Dr. Mike Perkins and Leon Furs on their AI assessment scales, which we're actually going to talk about tonight. We did one with Edge Protocols and their amazing writing-focused protocols. Not too long ago. So these are all recordings, but we lead these webinars quarterly. So I would recommend that you get on our mailing list, because even if you can't attend, if you register, we'll send you the recordings, and they're really useful resources for you to lean on. I think we try to do really high quality webinars once a quarter. So we're glad to have you at this one. I want to introduce myself so you know who's talking to you. My name's Adam Sparks. I'm the co-founder of Short Answer. I'm here tonight with my wife, Alexa. Yeah, wave and be, yes. And we're super excited to have you. We're joining you all from a small farmhouse outside of Louisville, Nebraska, which is where these photos are taken and where I grew up. I was a teacher for 7 years, so I taught middle and high school social studies and English, mostly in Nebraska, which is where I'm from. But Alexa and I taught in China for a year. I taught on the west side of Chicago for a couple of years. I worked in a district tech office during COVID. And then 3 years ago now, I was a full-time grad student at Stanford in their Learning Design and Technology program. And in that program, I built a tool called It was supposed to be a master's project called Short Answer, and we got some grant funding and launched it, and we've been building it ever since. We're going to talk a bit about Short Answer today, so I won't talk too much about it now, but that's my background. Alexa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Alexa. I'm also from Nebraska. Adam and I actually met in undergrad, and I was an English major, so reading and writing has always been kind of a love passion of mine. Progress, Adam. But then over the time, I found myself actually moving towards technology just for a myriad of reasons, and became a software engineer. And I've worked as a senior software engineer for the majority of my career until and including now. I do most of the tech work for Short Answer. Um, Recently, in June, I graduated from Stanford. I studied education and data science. And a lot of my research at Stanford was really focused on feedback and AI and like understanding the qualities of feedback that teachers provide on student writing versus the qualities that LLMs are providing. And yeah, and that's a picture of Adam and I working on Short Answer, which is what we both do full time now.
Yeah. And I appreciate in the QA, we have a Ted Kuzer shout out so
Heck yeah.
for Nebraska authors. So there we go. Um, Yes. So yeah, super excited to present with you all this evening. I'm sorry, I'm going to do my best to monitor the QA and have a, and present here, but sometimes I struggle, so don't judge me. But yeah, we're super excited to present with you all today. This is going to be a very, very condensed version of a half day, usually 3.5, 4 hour workshop that we lead in person with school districts. If you want to learn more about those workshops, they're linked here. Again, I will share these slides once we're done, but this is slide number 6. Um, Again, this is a 4 hour workshop. We're not going to cover all those 4 hours. We're going to condense it down to the stuff that I think maybe is most pertinent and usually the things that people are most interested in. And we'll cover that more here in a second. But I just wanted to give a sense of where we're coming to this work from. And this is also a continuation from NCT, so the National Council of Teachers of English. Alexa and I were in Denver last week presenting at NCTE. Um, and uh, I only got to present for like 30 minutes. And so we covered a very small chunk of it, but I was like, I really want to offer the rest of that, the stuff that we weren't able to cover, like maybe as a follow-up webinar. So if you're here from the NCTE presentation, I appreciate you being here, and we're excited to have you. So if we have the full 4 hours, here's what we would cover. Okay. We would start with Alexa's section, which is like the intro to AI, which is like, what is a large language model? Which for those that know, like large language model powered AI is the AI that has kicked off the boom of the last 3 years. It's like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, name your favorite large language model. All of those are the foundation upon which this modern AI boom is built. And so the first hour of the workshop is spent explaining, well, what is a large language model? How does it work? And what are the challenges associated with that? In the name of time, we're not going to cover that today. And honestly, like it's kind of a bummer to me, but like when we leave this workshop, At conferences, sometimes we'll like break it into chunks. And so I'll leave the first chunk is an hour, and the second chunk and the third chunk is different hours. And the first hour, the large language model basics is always the one that is the least attended. And that bums me out because I honestly think it's maybe the most important information that we cover. Unfortunately, we're not going to cover it here in the name of time. I think sometimes teachers are like, I don't need to understand how it works. I just need to understand how to deal with it. But I genuinely think you have to have a baseline understanding of how it works to deal with it effectively. So I will share some resources that you can train yourself up on sort of asynchronously on just like getting a baseline on like how do large language models work because there are tremendous opportunities with them, but there's also tremendous flaws and risks, and a huge challenge of them will be in mitigating some of those risks, but also while also trying to tap into some of the benefits. Um, Tonight, instead, we're going to spend the bulk of our time here. I know this says 2 hours. We're going to try to make it much faster than that. We've cut out a lot and just condensed it, focusing on controlling AI's influence to build foundational writing skills in a world where machines can write for kids. And then the last hour is normally like, okay, if we do want to use AI in student writing and student writing instruction, how do we do that effectively? Like I said, tonight, our webinar is just going to focus on that second chunk. Okay, just for context. And there are people asking, is the chat disabled? Because I know people are just joining. Unfortunately, it is. We didn't intend for it to be disabled. It's my fault. I set up this webinar wrong. So we're kind of ad hoc using the QA as a webinar. It doesn't work that well. But if you have questions, just raise your hand and I can allow you to talk and we can make it more of a dialogue. So I apologize to those that are just joining. But anyway, we're going to cover this second chunk tonight, and I hope it's valuable information for you. The goal being, we want to leave you feeling in control of AI in your writing classroom. Um, that's our goal. We're going to come back to it at the end. Okay. And all of this in every workshop that we lead, I like to parrot Stanford's Human-Centered AI Research Lab. They had an expression that stuck with me. So you'll sometimes hear this expression like there needs to be a human in the loop when you're using AI. And basically what that means is just like if you're going to have AI doing tasks for you, whether it's like administrative tasks as a teacher or using AI with students, there needs to be a human in the loop to sort of like human oversight of the AI to help mitigate the challenges associated with it. Okay. Stanford has pushed back on that power dynamic of just like being in the loop is not the right power dynamic. It needs to be uh, the AI is the thing in the loop, and the human is the thing that's ultimately in charge. So it's not human in the loop, it's AI in the loop, human in charge, or in our context, AI in the loop and teacher in charge. And so anytime we lead a workshop, any policy or practice or tool or whatever, that we share with you, we're trying to actualize this sort of philosophy. And if you want to learn more about where we got that expression, it's linked on this slide. It was from a conference that they led a couple years ago on just AI's influence on society. Um, so, um, with that said, I always also start our workshops with what I call the AI enthusiasm spectrum. And regardless of where you're coming to this work from, you're welcome in this workshop. But I sometimes feel the need to almost give this sort of positionality statement when it comes to AI, because I know some people are really fired up and excited about AI, and I also know some people are really scared and freaked out and think it's something that needs to be resisted at all costs. And that's the spectrum that we see. On the left end, it's like AI will destroy us, okay? And on the other end, it's AI will save us. It's going to solve our most intractable problems and cure cancer and revolutionize education. Having Alexa and I having lived in Silicon Valley for the last 4 years and like lived around a lot of tech excited people, these were the folks that we tended to live around. But I'll be honest with you, when we lead these workshops with school districts, especially with ELA departments, this tends to be the spectrum of the end of the spectrum that we interact with most. Regardless of where you're joining from, you're welcome in this workshop because I do think there's validity to both sides here. We're going to invite you to join us here. Okay, we think AI is okay. We think if you live down there too much, you risk ignoring amazing opportunities, which some of you have mentioned in the chat to start, or excuse me, in the QA. And then we think if you live down here too much, you risk ignoring some very serious flaws. And so we want to sort of convince you to join us in radical centrism when it comes to AI, like ready to tap into benefits while mitigating flaws, which is much easier said than done. But hopefully we can give you some strategies and tools today that will actually enable you to do that. So super excited to have you. Um, yes, and I'm trying to monitor the QA. It's strange, but so Debbie says, yes, the outline looks amazing. Yes, I'm excited to share it, Debbie. And Chastity said, is AI to writing that calculators were to mathematics? It's an interesting analogy, and I want to come back to that because I have this theory that the analogy that you choose to make to AI says a lot about how you view the AI and view AI in general. And so it's like, what AI analogy do you choose? That's an unpublished Substack that I have written. So I want to come back to that. That's actually a good comment. Thank you, Chastity. Um, but yeah, let's jump into what would normally be part two of the workshop. I'm super excited for it. And I want to jump from the jump, just start right here, because this is sometimes what I hear. Dude, I've got an AI policy. It's called Don't Use AI. And if you do use it, I'll use Turnitin or whatever AI detection software. And you get a zero if it says you used it, and boom, we're done. I can just like wipe my hands of this issue. I don't have to change my teaching because I have AI detection and we're good to go. Unfortunately, the easy button does not work. So the way that AI detection software works is it's looking for the quote distinct probabilistic pattern unquote that one might expect when AI tokens are generated. That's a direct quote from the head of AI at Turnitin, who I randomly met with. Um, and so large language model powered AI like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever tool you use, when you go and say, hey, generate this thing for me, and it kicks out all these words, it's just stringing together those words based on probabilities. So what AI detection is trying to do is it's looking at the words that it's being shared with it and based on the words that have been put together, looking for the probabilistic patterns that you might expect when words have been strung together in the style of a large language model. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work reliably enough to use in classrooms. So this is from Dr. Laura Weber-Wolf. She's a researcher at the University of Applied Sciences in Berlin. I think this is the best study that's been done because it was a large randomized controlled trial of all the major publicly available AI detection tools. And all these studies will be linked if you want to study them afterwards. But that's a direct quote from the findings. The systems we tested should not be used in academic settings because they're just not accurate enough. Um, so that's from independent third-party researcher. Maryland's computer science department found the same thing. They found that you can drop the efficacy of these tools by 90% if you just um, type in like, hey, make sure this doesn't flag for AI, or if you like simply change some words around, or there's any number of ways that you can drop the efficacy of AI detection tools. Um, Dr. Mike Perkins, who we've led a webinar with, and we're going to share some of his research here in a second, found very similar findings. And again, all these studies are linked. I think maybe the best person doing work on this right now, I've actually linked his LinkedIn right there. His name's Dr. Mark Bassett. He's a researcher from Australia. I follow him on LinkedIn. And if you're a LinkedIn person, I would recommend that you follow him as well, because a lot of this research that I'm linking, I found through him. So I would recommend that you follow him. He has this is like a pre-published paper that I think they wrote for, I can't remember who they wrote it for, but it's really good. It's called Heads We Win, Tails You Lose. And it's about a lot of what I'm sharing here of AI detection software doesn't work and runs high risks of any number of challenges in our schools when we use them. So I would recommend that you follow Dr. Mark Bassett. I think his work's fantastic. This is a full lit review on this research from Colorado Boulder that I think is really great and up to date. But if you don't believe third-party researchers, OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, that has literally shared a blog post where they talk about giving up on creating or attempting to create AI detection software. Um, and it's they basically just admit like we couldn't get it to work at a high enough efficacy level to release it to the public and pretend that it did work. Which on some level I appreciate their honesty. I wish that other companies were as honest, frankly. Um, but I mean, if you don't believe third-party research, I think OpenAI is arguably one of the best collections of AI researchers in the world, and they're saying that it doesn't work. Stanford has done studies that find that large language model detection tools are biased against non-native English speakers, both because non-native English speakers sometimes their text and the way that they write tends to be a little bit more formulaic, but also because oftentimes non-native English speakers are writing in their preferred or the language they're most comfortable in their native language, but then they're copy pasting it into Google Translate and translating it to, in the United States context to English, and then submitting that. Well, the AI that is translating the software is stringing together words in the same way that large language models do. Well, it's different, but it follows similar statistical patterns. So in that way, it's more likely to flag non-native English speakers. Um, and so partly because of that, a lot of leading universities have banned AI detection software. And again, part of what bothers me about this is I think the companies that are selling AI detection software are being dishonest about the efficacy of their tools. I got caught up in drama around that, partly because I was hanging around Alexa and all of her data science friends at Stanford. couple years ago, at this point, no, it was about a year ago now. Um, OpenAI put out, or sorry, Turnitin put out a white paper talking about all the efficacy and the research supporting their approach. Um, and I read it and I picked through the sources and read the sources that they were citing, and they were literally citing some of the papers that I'm citing up here at the top that literally say these should not be used in academic settings. Um, so if you want to read more about that, I put out a Twitter thread that kind of went viral, and that's why I ended up meeting with the head of AI at Turnitin, and I wrote a guest blog post for Matt Miller's Ditch That Textbook blog about the whole experience. If you want to learn more, it's all linked there. Um, but the number one reason I would say here on why I don't think AI detection tools should be used is this. And I know you don't need Dr. Robert Marzano to tell you this. If you're an educator and you've been in the classroom, you know this without a researcher telling you it. But having positive relationships with your students is one of the most important factors determining learning outcomes in your classroom. Like your relationship with your students is going to determine what you're able to get out of them. And I think anything that runs the risk of getting in the way of those relationships is not worth our time. And so this is from that Weber-Wolf study. Um, on that was a randomized control trial of the efficacy of all the large language model detection tools. And Turnitin is the best on the market, but it's still wrong over 20% of the time. So the way that I would frame that to you as educators is you have a 20% chance of damaging a relationship with a student when you accuse them of using AI by running it through a tool like Turnitin. And I think that when you consider how important a relationship is in the classroom, that's way too high of a chance of damaging a relationship by making a false accusation. So I don't think AI detection should be used. I certainly don't think your school district should be paying for it. Um, that said, if you are using it, I think at best it's a conversation starter at best. Um, but yeah, Debbie says, I love the perspective of chance of damaging a relationship. Yeah, I just think when you consider how important relationships are, anything that potentially gets in the way of them, I don't think is worth our time. But if you are going to use it, at best, it's a conversation starter. And this is a direct quote from his name's Eric Wong. He's the head of AI at Turnitin. He literally said, "You should never give a kid a zero based on whatever Turnitin tells you. It should be a conversation starter." Now, I still think that's flawed because you're starting a conversation with what is potentially a baseless accusation, which I don't think is a healthy place to start a conversation. But at best, maybe if you are going to use it as an AI detector, or excuse me, use it as a conversation starter. Okay. Um, yes. If you have questions as we go through, we do have a QA open, so please ask them. I know the more that we can make this interactive, the better. I know sometimes the webinar format is not always the best for interactivity, but the more it's interactive and less it's just me talking, I think the better. So. And I'm not going to talk too much about this. This is linked, but there's already been high-profile instances of kids that have been falsely accused of using AI when they didn't use it, and it leading to all sorts of really awful consequences. So I'm very anti-AI detection software, if you can't tell. I think instead, changes to writing instruction and assessment in general in K-12 are going to require much larger, more holistic changes. And so the rest of this webinar will focus on those larger holistic changes. The first one is that I think we need to reframe academic integrity as a learning outcome. I'm taking that from a researcher named Sonja Bejlababa, whose picture is there, and I think I linked her Twitter on her picture. Um, and I think her research is great. She talks a lot about how too often we're defining academic integrity in classrooms by what it's not. So we'll tell a kid academic integrity is not copy pasting off your classmate, or it's not using ChatGPT when I told you not to, or it's not this, or it's not this. But we don't often actually tell them what acting with integrity is and like teach them how to do that. So her research focuses on like how do we teach kids explicitly like academic integrity, and it's relatively straightforward. And I've linked to the paper that will walk you through this, but it's just define what integrity looks like in your classroom in the same way that you would define a learning standard. Create activities to develop those outcomes and then assess those outcomes. Okay, and I've linked resources to help with all of this, but in the context of that we're discussing today, it could be like students will be able to articulate an understanding of what different forms of misconduct are. Like maybe you need to literally have explicit conversations with kids around like showing them a picture of something a student did and asking them, is this cheating or not, and why? And having those conversations, being explicit with students about what is cheating in your context, or what are your academic integrity expectations. And students should be able to identify those different forms and then know what policies they're being held accountable to and what tools and practices you're using to hold them accountable to those policies. So this is more academic integrity writ large, but then what this looks like within each content area is going to look different. I think in a writing classroom, this is probably some stuff that you're already doing at the middle and high school level, maybe not so much at the elementary, depending, but like students should be able to identify bibliographical information in their text. They should be able to understand how sources have been used and how to signal that they've used them transparently. They should know how to cite and paraphrase correctly, including AI. I think one of the major upsides of AI that I use all the time is I use it for research. Just to do quick cursory, like just give me a sense of a topic. I use Perplexity all the time. I pay for ChatGPT's premium subscription, and they have a tool called Deep Research that I use quite a bit. Um, but if you're going to use AI in your paper or to help you do research, you should cite it in the same way that you would cite any other source that you're pulling from. And there are now guidance, there's now guidance on how to cite AI. One thing I heard of a teacher doing that I really liked was if you're going to use AI as a source, you need to cross-reference it with a reliable human source, because one of the challenges of large language model powered AI is that it can hallucinate and just make stuff up. So you need to cross-reference um, whatever information it's giving you with at least one or two reliable human sources, whether that be their textbook or an online source or whatever it depends on your content, obviously. But I like that idea of cross-referencing if and when you're going to have kids cite and paraphrase AI. And yeah, just be able to signal to readers what are their own words. And I'm actually going to share a tool that I really love that'll kind of help with that here in a second. But ultimately, I think the high level of this all is to just go back. It's academic integrity being viewed as a learning outcome that we explicitly teach to students, and we don't just assume that they know how to act with academic integrity. Um, and again, this is also in Jabej Lababa's work, so you should go check it out. I know that was really fast, and we could lead a whole workshop just on the academic integrity as a learning outcome, but I like to start there because I think that's a healthy reframe of where things need to go. And it's all built on this just simple acknowledgement, I think, that AI will likely influence student work when it leaves the classroom in 2025. So we should adjust accordingly, especially in a writing classroom. And so what I think that looks like is teaching kids to write effectively with AI. And that's a scary topic because AI is so new and changing so much, there's not necessarily peer-reviewed third-party research on like what's the best way to go about doing that, and then write effectively without AI. Now, by nature of this being a very condensed workshop, for better or for worse, we're going to spend most of our time over here today, just because that tends to be the area that teachers are most interested in right now. But I do think there's a whole other side of this that maybe we'll do a follow-up webinar on. But we're going to focus on this side of the equation. Um, and so then that leads naturally to, okay, first and foremost, before we do anything with AI, we need to have clear policies in place in place with kids, so that they know what our expectations are, right? There are any number of resources that you can go to today to find amazing AI policy guidance, and I will link some of those here in a second. But at, to some extent, I always feel weird in this chunk of the workshop because I know that you all, as classroom educators, are dictated by what is your school policy, what is your district policy, or potentially even what is your state policy. So rather than give that level of guidance, I try to keep it at the syllabus level and systems that I've heard from teachers working particularly well at the syllabus level of like, what do I communicate with my kids at the beginning of the year in my syllabus on how about AI? Um, and the best system that I've seen and that I really like is a simple red, yellow, green labeling system. And it's just if I label an assignment red, you cannot use any AI. If I label it yellow, you can use some with specific constraints. And if I label it green, you can use AI. And not only can you, I want you to. And part of what I'm measuring with the assignment is your ability to use AI effectively in the task. I took this from an administrator at this point now, a former administrator, Adrian Cotterill. He was a principal in Australia. He will give you a detailed breakdown of how they use this system in their district, and had great results from using it. So that's linked on the slides that again I will share. This is on slide 27. Um, but I think what I like about this is the simplicity of it. I think kids know a stoplight, and oftentimes in elementary school, middle school, like teachers are using the stoplight for other classroom management tasks. So it's something that kids have a built-in schema for. And it's just really simple, while also kind of building in the acknowledgement that like kids are AI is likely to influence work and we need to adjust accordingly. And so thinking about AI's influence on student work through the lens of like tiered layering of influence, I think is a healthy one. I have seen some pushback on the red, yellow, green system. um, I would encourage you to seek that pushback out. It's not necessarily, again, like part of what's scary about AI is that we don't have a whole lot of peer-reviewed research on best practice for learning outcomes. But this is grounded in the work of Dr. Mike Perkins and Leon Furs. And obviously, this scale is very different from a red, yellow, green scale. Theirs is a little bit more complicated. They have 5 levels to their scale as opposed to 3. Um, I think that's a bit convoluted and hard in practice to actually enforce and practice in a classroom. So I prefer the simplicity of the red, yellow, green, but I would encourage you to check out Dr. Perkins and Leon Furz's system that's linked here. And I mentioned this earlier, but we actually led a webinar with them on this topic. Um, of their AI assessment scale. So if you want to think of the red, yellow, green system that way, of like an AI assessment scale system of just layers of influence on student work, essentially, ranging from kids not using any AI all the way up to kids completely using AI to do the assignment and you measuring their ability to do that effectively. So I'd encourage you to check out that webinar and this blog post from Adrian Cotterill. I'm not going to spend too much time here because I do think the red, yellow, green system is relatively simple, but I think if you're labeling an assignment red, that's best for assessing foundational knowledge and skills. And I think the overwhelming majority of work going in your gradebook should be red, because more often than not, the work that you're doing in the classroom is to develop foundational knowledge and skills, and you need to know what kids can do on their own. And so you might use AI in those tasks to scaffold the learning task, but the student shouldn't be using AI to help like actually complete the task, because you need to know what the kids can do on their own with that task. So I think most going in the gradebook should be red. For yellow, I think that's best when you're um, assessing tasks that must be completed over time, like long form writing. And I think some of the work going in your gradebook should be yellow, where the kids can use some AI, but with specific constraints around it. Um, but I certainly don't think all of it should be. And then green, again, are tasks where part of the goal is to teach effective AI use. And that's going to require all sorts of dialogue up front around the challenges associated with AI, your academic integrity expectations. I think a reflective element would be a good part of any assessment that's going to be at a green level. Um, and I do think a few assignments going to your gradebook should be green, but I certainly don't think all of them need to transition to that. Um, so then the challenge becomes, well, if I set a red or a yellow expectation, how do I actually enforce that? And I'm hoping to give you tools here in a second. But I'm going to pause because I know I'm covering a lot of information. I'm going really fast. Does anybody have questions right now? If you do, please put them in the chat, or sorry, excuse me, the QA, or you can raise your hand, and I can take you off mute and you can just ask it. But I just want to pause because I have a tendency to move way too fast. Awkward think time. Awkward think time. Okay. If you okay, perfect. Debbie said this is helpful. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I gave awkward think time. Um, Jessica said, if I didn't watch the kid do it, I can't go there. Moving to 100% virtual alt ed campus has nudged me farther from writing as a process and towards more frequent, first off, real-time writing opportunities. Good for whoever was present that day, but also a disservice not guiding them toward editing and revision. Short answer gives great isolated opportunity. Thanks for the short answer shout out. Yes. Um, but, and then you got cut off. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jessica. It got cut off. It just says but, and then I can't see it. Um, how will we ever be able to access? Eileen, I will share the slides afterwards. So if you register for this, I'll send an email that will have this recording, but it will also have the slides so that you can access all of these. And the chat is disabled, but can you guys see the chat? I can share them now. Um, I don't know if you're going to be actually be able to access them in the chat, but I just put them there. But even if you can't access them in the chat, again, I will share them in a follow-up email. So I apologize about that. Um, awesome. Yes, we can get the link in the QA. Perfect. All right. I'm glad you have it. Thanks for asking that. Okay. We're going to keep motoring, but I appreciate the questions. Yes. Sue says yes, exclamation point. And I say yes, exclamation point as well. Um, okay. I think some of this is relatively straightforward. But again, though, okay, I know red, yellow, green system, maybe not for you, maybe not perfect. I've talked to teachers who have, it's worked really well for them, but maybe not for you. The best resource I've seen for foundational policy ideas for your classroom, for your campus, for your district, whatever, is from an organization called Teach AI. I will follow it here for a second so you can see that they have sample guidance at every level that's really good. Like the steering committee of Teach AI is like ISTE and code.org and like all these really amazing, reputable organizations. So I think Teach AI is just a great resource if you're looking for especially policy guidance. I think it's really useful. So that's on slide 34 for those that are here. Okay. Um, this was just something I discovered and wanted to share. I think it's kind of cool. Pepperdine University created this AI policy statement creator that you can use to help you. It's sort of like an if-then statement game where it like walks you through creating a syllabus statement. So um, it'll help. I'm not going to actually go through it, but it's really cool, and I would encourage you to check it out. Maybe next year when you're building your syllabus, or I think it's a useful tool. So I wanted to share that for those that are thinking about crafting policy statements. Okay, so we've set our policy. Okay, let's just pretend for the purposes of this webinar that our policy is a red, yellow, green system. The next step needs to be communicating that policy to students, and I think from the stories that I hear, um, oftentimes we're skipping this step. We're setting a policy and then we're jumping to enforcement and just kind of holding kids accountable to it without communicating our expectations all that well. And so I think set the policy, then communicate the policy, then enforce it. But communication is the second and important step. Um, so um, the best tool that I've seen in a writing context to help facilitate communication around AI is a free tool that was created by a school district. I think the fact that it's created by a school district is amazing to me and really cool. It's created by Laguna Beach USD in California. It's a tool called AI Trust You. Um, it's a free Chrome extension. I will demo it here in a second, but just know, even if you're not a Google school and like you don't do the Chrome extension thing, you can take the concept of what this is doing and easily replicate it on your own. And I can show you how to do that. But basically what it is, it's a generator of what they call AI truth and trust statements. And it's I think a really healthy reframe of AI in a writing classroom, and starting from a place of truth and trust, and moving away from a place where we're often starting conversations, which is that of like distrust and sort of like gotcha culture uh, around AI use. So let me show you what AI Trust You does. Um, I'm gonna I'm actually gonna hold on, make a copy and show you what it would look like if so let's pretend I'm gonna have my kids do a piece of writing. Um, delete this. This is a blog post I wrote. We'll come back to this here in a second. So let's present this. So here's a document. This is going to be the document that I share out through Google Classroom or through Canvas or through whatever your LMS is. Um, and so I want my students to use this and go like file, make a copy, and then they're all going to do their writing in this document. Okay. With my extension turned on, I got AI Trust You up here. I'm going to zoom in on it so you can see it. And I'm going to go build AI truth and trust statement. And it's going to be slow. Give me a second. Okay. So it says, are you a student or a teacher? I'm a teacher. Can the students use AI in this assignment? Well, let's go back to our red, yellow, green system. Let's pretend that it's yellow. Okay. So yes, they can, but with specific constraints. So let's pretend I really love School AI. That's a tool that I think is amazing. My favorite thing within it is you can create like custom chatbots and then share those chatbots with student through a code and monitor their interaction with it. It's really cool. So maybe I created a custom chatbot with School AI and we shared it out, but they can only use that chatbot, nothing else. Okay. How much of the student's work may be generated by AI in this assignment? This is interesting. I'm gonna go, it can assist them, but I don't want to move into like produced or even collaborate. I just want like some minor like can be used to generate roughly 20% of your work. I'm gonna go down to like 10. It shouldn't be generating much at all. It should really just be you interacting with my chatbot in this case. Okay. Now this is where if it's yellow, I'm going to put those specific constraints on it. So it's like you can only use it um, to maybe a rephrase. Like maybe I created a bot that helps you rephrase sentences. Um, if you feel like they're awkwardly worded or you need some help with like your sentence fluency. So rephrasing, but that's the only way. And generate truth and trust statement. And then I can look at that and then paste it into the Google Doc. And so now the first thing that my students will see when they open up this Google Doc are my truth and trust expectations around, okay, AI may be used. Feel free to use this tool and you can use it in this way, right? So there is no, Debbie said, is this the work of Kim Vogel? Yes, it is. Somebody knows Laguna Beach USD very well. Yeah, this is Kim Vogel and Michael Morrison and Carrie Raby and like all the amazing TOSAs and instructional coaches at Laguna Beach USD, which is a really amazing school district. Oh, nice. Debbie was at Laguna Beach this summer. Nice. I'm assuming yeah, Edge Protocols. Nice. Yeah, amazing school district and doing amazing work. They're one of only like 10, I think maybe like one of only five school K-12 school districts that's like actually partnered with OpenAI. It's crazy. Um, so anyway, they've done some really cool stuff, and this is I think amazing. Like there is no, I didn't know what your expectations were when the first thing that the students see when they open up the document you want them to write in has your expectations right there front and center. And again, starting from a place of truth and trust. Okay. So let's pretend this is a writing assignment. I set these expectations. Um, and now I've written it. So this is a blog post I wrote a while back about Flipgrid, which is a tool I really loved. And I'm a student. And now I'm turning it into my teacher. Set the expectation with them that they also need to create a truth and trust statement. So they can go, hey, I trust you, build truth and trust statement. I probably shouldn't have clicked out of it because it's really slow. Um, okay, I'm a student. Did you use AI in this assignment? Yes, I did. I used school AI, but then I did all the things I wasn't supposed to do. I used all these other ones. And then I completely produced it. 91% of my work was AI. And I used it to do all these things. Right. Um, and I'm going to generate truth and trust statement. And it's going to put that into the Google Doc. Uh, there's a good question in the chat that I'll get to here in a second. Um, and now at the very bottom of the paper, I can have a truth and trust statement from the student. So if I open up a paper and I'm reading it and I'm like, I know you're writing, I know what you sound like. This does not sound like you. The first place you can go is not to AI detection software. Just go see what the student told you. And of course they can lie and they don't necessarily have to tell the truth. But if you want to start a conversation with the kid, I think the healthiest place is just what did they tell me that they did? And then if you have questions about that, I'm gonna share tools in here in a second that can help you sort of prod at some of those responses from the student. But starting from a place of I share my expectations up front with you, and then you share with me how or if you used AI, I think is a much healthier place and a great way to communicate things. Um, and Jessica said two things. She said, I love that it gives them a voice first. And yes, I love that too. There's some voice and choice involved here, which I think is cool. And then the second question was, does this work with Microsoft products? To my knowledge, it does not. It's just a Chrome extension, so it's only for Google Chrome. But what I've seen teachers do is you can basically just pre-create these truth and trust statements and copy paste them into whatever, a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word doc in your case, and then just kind of have that pulled up off to the side as like almost like a bank of them, and then you can just copy paste them over quickly for whatever assignment that you're doing. I know that's not necessarily ideal, but I think the value here is really just in the concept of a truth and trust statement in general. I think that's a really healthy way to go about um, communicating and enforcing AI policy. Um, so hopefully that's useful. I'm gonna delete this. Okay. So that's AI trust you. I really love that as like a set the policy, then communicate the policy. Um, thumbs up from Jessica. Okay. So then if you want to enforce the AI policy that you've set, let's pretend that you've set a red level expectation. You can use no AI. And a kid turns in a paper and you really suspect that they did use AI. The best tools that I've seen for this are revision tracking tools. So with these, you have to set the expectation up front that the students do their writing all in one document and all in the same document. And when you set that expectation, then you're going to have access to their revision history, which is all the changes that have been made to that document. And there are now a plethora of tools. I'm going to share my favorite, but there are many that can do this. That will then, if you suspect AI is, will quickly replay the students' revision history to you so that you can see the changes that were made in the document. So my favorite one for this is Brisk. Brisk is a really great AI Chrome extension, although I do think they also now have Microsoft compatibility as well. Um, there are other ones that do this. So there's a draft back, there's revision history. Brisk is great because it does a heck of a lot more than just the revision tracking, but I think it's the most robust and it's also free, so I like to demo it. So this is my paper. I wrote this. This was a blog post I wrote. I have Brisk turned on, so when I have it added to my uh, web browser, it'll live up here as an extension. But then I don't know if you can see this very well. I'll try to zoom in on it. There's a little Brisk bubble down here in the bottom right that's popping up because I have it added to my computer. But when I click Brisk in the bottom right with the student's paper pulled up, I can then click Inspect Writing. And hold on, I'm going to restart this. What it's going to do is basically play a sped up video of all the edits that have been made to this document. Um, so it's going to show me the edits. It's going to count the number of here. Maybe just as importantly, it's going to show me how much time was spent in the document. I think that that is maybe the most just as useful of a piece of information. Like, you submitted a five a paragraph essay, and I'm watching a revision history, and there's two big copy pastes, and you spent 3 minutes in this document. Like, can you tell me more about this? Like, if you want to start a conversation with the kid about whether or not they followed your AI policy, I think this is the healthiest place to start um, because it's literally their work being played back to them. Um, and it will also show you like if there are moments of copy pastes, which you can see down here, like there were three large copy pastes that were made. I can, excuse me, I can quickly skip to those and see what were those like. And if I want to have a conversation with the student, maybe this is where I'm like, hey, where did you get this big brick of text from? Right. Um, so I think revision tracking tools, whether it's a Brisk tool like this, like Brisk, or if it's one of the other ones, I think are going to be your best friend, especially for longer form writing that necessarily needs to leave the classroom. So if you're middle school, high school ELA, and you're doing like, multi-page papers, I think revision tracking is going to be a really important tool for you going forward. Okay. Okay. I'm going to pause there once again and give some think time. Any questions in the chat? Or maybe raise your hand and you can come off mute and ask a question. Okay. Then I'm going to move forward. But if you do have questions, please don't forget to put them in the chat. Um, so, oh, Jessica says, would you require two first drafts to be turned in to maintain access to one without revisions? Let me think that through. Would you require two first drafts to maintain access to the one without revisions? I'm kind of confused by the question, but if I'm understanding it correctly, I would just recommend, and if we want to follow the flow that I was kind of talking about earlier um, with a tool like AI Trust You, maybe make a document, put your AI Truth and Trust statement in there, share that document out if it's a Google Doc via like Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever, and then ask your kids to all do like a file, make a copy of that document, and then set the expectation that they need to do all their editing in that document. Because you just want to make sure all the edits are made in the same place so that you have access to all that revision history. Because basically what these tools are doing are just, if I can find it, they're just going to your version history, which this has been in Google Docs for a long time. And you can see every edit that's been made. It's saved in the version history. It's just really time consuming and burdensome for a teacher to have to try to pick through all of this to enforce this. So the utility of a revision tracking tool is to just speed this up by playing a video of it to you. Um, but that's only going to happen if you've set the expectation that they do all their editing in one document. Um, Whereas if the kids are jumping between documents, um, you would lose the full scope of that version history. If that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question, Jessica, and if it didn't, please respond with maybe another question or something. I apologize. Um, is it me or is it incumbent upon those who encourage the use of AI to teach prompt crafting and to remind students of the environmental impact of AI? 100%, 100%. And you're making me feel guilty, Sue, because if this were the full workshop, we would begin the first hour talking about large language models. And a big part of what we talk about there are the flaws. And one of the major flaws is there is a huge carbon footprint associated with AI tools and large language models, just because of the amount of electricity that it takes to both pre-train models, but also to then host the models and allow millions of people to call on them and generate trillions of tokens every day. Um, there's like literally not enough electricity to do it right now. So there's a huge carbon footprint associated. Um, there's also huge ethical questions about uh, plagiarism and IP theft. Some of the ways that these models were trained relied on labor practices that are sketchy. I mean, these tools hallucinate. These tools perpetuate bias both unintentionally and intentionally. So yeah, so to answer your question, I think it is incumbent on us to teach students before we ever have them interact with a large language model, some of these challenges so that they know what they're interacting with. And you're making me feel guilty that I cut out the first hour of this presentation. Um, but actually, both Alexa and I are listening to a book right now that I would recommend that does a great job of covering a lot of this. It's called Empire of AI. I'm feeling really bad that I can't remember the name of the author. Let me look it up. If you just Google Empire of AI, it'll come up. We're listening to it on Audible. Her name is Karen Howe. It's really good. I would recommend it. It would do a great job of covering a lot of what I just covered. And there's other resources as well. But yeah, thanks for calling that out, Susan. Um, Yes, Debbie said Karen Howe. Yeah, and it's fantastic. If I can make two book recommendations just real quick, the Empire of AI book by Karen Howe is fantastic. And it comes very much, if we want to go back to our centrist view of things, it comes very much from the critical lens of things. It's very uh, yeah, it's critical of AI. So it's really healthy in that way. The other end of the spectrum, though, I think there's a book by Ethan Mollick called Co-Intelligence that's a heck of a lot more positive. And I have found it really informative to like try to wrestle with the ideas in the Ethan Mollick book and square them away with the Karen Howe book and the dialectical thinking. If Robert Mayfield's still in here, shout out to him for making that term, making me aware of that term. Um, that has sparked in me has been really valuable. So I'd recommend both of those books. And Debbie's sharing links, so maybe check that out. Um, yeah, to both of them. Um, yes, so thank you for the comments and questions. Okay, now speaking of morally dubious AI, that's a good transition. Um, Here's the problem with revision tracking. I think even revision tracking in the next like six, if not now, the next 6 months to a year is starting to not even necessarily work. Because we're moving into a world of agentic AI, where um, browsers can do open-ended tasks on the internet for us or for your students. So I just want to quickly make you aware of these. I don't know how widespread the usage of these are yet, but I certainly think they will become more widespread over time, and we need to be aware of them. Um, it's funny that they've even changed the name of this multiple times. It used to be called Operator. Now it's called GPT Agent. I'm sure they'll change the name again in 2 weeks. Um, but Operator is basically a web browser, was, now it's GPT Agent, is a web browser that can do open-ended tasks on the internet for you. So this was from Graham Clay, who has a blog post that I'll share with you here in a second. But this is a video of him going to Operator and saying, "Hey, Operator, I want you to go ahead and sign into." He signs it into Google for him, But then he says, I want you to write a paper for me, and I want you to make this number of edits over this amount of time, um, and make it look like I wrote it, make some mistakes, make it look like it's my process. But basically, what he's doing is simulating a revision history. Um, and so, uh, especially in I just saw a little face pop up of like, whoa. Yes, people are reacting in the comments, or in the emotions that you can react with in Google or in Zoom now. Um, yeah, I think this changes the game, especially for online asynchronous education, but even for in-class K-12 educators. So this is GPT Agent, another tool, and I'll share the blog post where I got this video from so you can watch it. This is Comet. This is from Perplexity in their browser, which I think Comet is actually I've seen better reviews of it than some of the GPT stuff. But this is a video of a oh gosh, I can't remember his name, and I always feel guilty when I'm in a public setting and I can't remember people's names. But he, if you watch this video, and I can pull it up here, um, Dr. Michael Lamusio, um, he basically is like pretends to be a student and logs into Canvas and is like, "Hey, Comet, I want you to log into Canvas for me and do all my quizzes that are due." And it goes ahead and logs in for him and does all the quizzes and gets 100% on them. And all the student had to do was type in a prompt, and the browser just goes and does it all for you. Um, so Jess, Jessica says, "Nah, I know. I'm sorry." Um, and I really, I don't, I guess I don't know, but I don't think that the intention of the creators of a tool like Comet or a GPT agent is necessarily to help kids cheat. But I certainly think it's going to be a side effect. Um, and I don't know. I've seen some people that I really trust and respect in the academic integrity space, like writing open letters to these companies asking them to turn it off on Canvas. And I don't know how realistic it is to think that companies are going to um, change their products when there's so much money on the line, frankly, for better or for worse. Sorry, I'm just watching this video now. So all this is the reason I'm sharing this is because I do think even revision tracking tools going forward are sort of crumbling as an effective way to enforce a policy. Debbie said not just kids cheat, but university students. What good will university degrees be, and how stupid will folks with degrees be? Yikes. Yeah, this is a huge challenge for higher ed. It's almost to me, it's almost a bigger challenge for higher ed than K-12, just because the way higher ed is structured, like most of the stuff that you're doing is happening outside the classroom. Whereas in K-12, because we, at least traditional K-12 setting, we got the classroom setting, we have those controlled conditions on a daily basis. But regardless, it's a challenge for all of us, I think. And Jessica's like, that is literally my job. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Um, and I hesitate to even mention this one. This is a tool called Cluely that is being built specifically to help students cheat. Um, this made headlines a while back. There were they initially launched with the use case of like if you're doing a Zoom interview for a job, it's like in Zoom and it's listening to the questions being asked of you, and then it's feeding you answers on your screen, almost like a teleprompter to like tell you what to say. Um, but you can use it to cheat in the same ways that I just described as well. Yeah, Debbie, I'm sorry. Cluely is one of the more frustrating of any of these tools because they're explicitly built to help you cheat, and that's the way they marketed it to schools or sorry to students. In fact, the kids that are building it are former dropouts of Columbia that got kicked out because they were using AI to cheat. Um, so this is one of the more obviously morally dubious ones, but I'm just putting it on your radar so that you can be aware of it, that we're kind of heading into this new agentic world. Um, and I think we have to adjust accordingly. And that is true even of Google. And this was one, so I want to see if this still works. So Google has a tool. Ooh, see, it's not, it used to be right here and it's not there anymore. So maybe they've removed it by default. It used to be, hmm, hold on. Sorry, let me see if I can pull this up. I'm gonna pull up a math question in Khan Academy and see if it can do it for me here. Yes, let's get started. Yay. Okay. Um, did they get rid of it? Oh my gosh. I was gonna enjoy showing you this, but unfortunately I don't think it's here anymore. Or you could just snap a picture and then oh yeah, search with Google Lens. It's still there. So I don't know if you can see this because I can't zoom in on it, but there's this search with Google Lens option. And then I can just highlight a portion of my screen. And it used to be that it would just kick out an answer. So let's see if it does this one for me. Sometimes it struggles with math. Nope, it did the whole thing for me. So the answer is 4. Okay, the logarithm log 10, whatever. We're not going to actually do it, but I just want to show you. Let's see if it got it right. Check. Oh, not quite yet. Did it? Oh, sorry, I entered the wrong answer. Hold on, hold on. I got the wrong one. Let me go. It said 4. It said 4. Check again. I got it right. Yay. Um, So, yeah, I just want to show you this because this is literally in Google Chrome right now, and it would not surprise me at all if there's TikToks flying around the world of 16-year-olds telling each other about all these amazing tools that are now available to them. Um, so this is the world we're heading into, and frankly, this is the world we're in. And so this is that Graham Clay article I shared. And I know it sometimes feels like this. It's like whack-a-mole. Like we come up with revision tracking, and then they come up with Cluely, and then we come up with a thing to block Cluely, and it's just this back and forth. So it's like, how do we get out of the endless cycle? Um, and sorry, there's people in the chat, so I want to make sure I respond. Um, all tech can be used for both honorable and questionable ends, and it's left to us the born to teach folks to teach the responsible use piece. But what AI is locked away from students, when AI is locked away from students, we lose the opportunity. Yeah, for sure. I'm certainly not saying all this means we need to ban AI and we're only going to go back to like writing with paper pencil and under controlled conditions and like sort of draconian stuff that I sometimes see being celebrated on social media, unfortunately, by some corners of the teaching universe. I don't think we need to do that. I do think teach it's incumbent on us to teach kids effective AI use. I agree with your framing of it. There's a quote from Sal Khan, who's the creator of Khan Academy, that I like and I parrot a lot. He says, um, technology is an amplification of human intent. So if you want to use AI to cheat, you can do that. If you want to use AI to make you a more effective student and like help you study and like learn like you've never learned before, you can also use it for that, right? It's just going to amplify whatever your intent is. So I think it's incumbent on us as educators to show kids how and teach them explicitly how to use it for positive ends as opposed to negative ends like cheating and undercutting learning and all those things. Um, so how do we get out of the endless cycle? I don't have a perfect answer for you, but this is one of the best that I've seen. This is from Dr. Kiara Rundle and Philip Dawson. Um, and what collectively I've heard referred to as a Swiss cheese model of assessment going forward. And the Swiss cheese meaning basically any layer of assessment you come up with to measure a student's ability is going to have holes in it, like a piece of Swiss cheese. So in the example I just gave you, we've got revision tracking, but unfortunately it's got the hole of plagiarism through an agentic browser like Comet, right? A kid can now just simulate a revision tracking, a revision history if they want to. And so the cheating gets right through. Um, so the thinking here is that you need to stack your layers because where one layer might have a hole, another layer might not. So maybe you do some revision tracking, and maybe that's one layer, but then you're also going to layer in some peer conferencing where students have to share what they wrote with other classmates and defend what they wrote. And you'd be surprised, and I hear this a lot from teachers about how much kids hold each other accountable when they know a student wrote something that doesn't sound like them, when it sounds like GPT AI slop. So I think peer conferencing maybe is a layer. Maybe if it's a really important, like this is like a big research paper that we're doing, and it's a big, part of your grade. Um, Maybe there's a one-to-one conversation that's going to happen as a part of the assessment um, between me and the student. I know that can be hard to pull off logistically, but the student's going to share what they wrote with me and defend it. And maybe if it's like an ultimate, like a big summative assignment, it's going to be a big part of their grade. Maybe there's an in-class presentation where they're like almost like a PhD dissertation defense, defending what they wrote to their class. Um, I don't know what these layers are going to look like. It's obviously going to look different depending on whatever content that you teach. But I just thinking about assessment through the lens of layering, I think is going to be an important one going forward, and just acknowledging that like any one of these layers is not necessarily fail proof. Debbie, I'm gonna bring you on to chat. Hold on, I gotta allow you to talk. Yes, Debbie, go ahead.
Thanks. You know what this just brings to mind to me is like right when you said that, it was like this makes me feel like because we have this factory model of teaching,
Yeah,
where we have so many kids in a room and so many kids to quote process through. If we had smaller class sizes, we could assess, like so much writing is assessing, we could assess their thinking through one on one conversations in sort of the Socratic model back
yeah,
to Socrates, but we can't. And so I wonder if this is also going to bring around maybe some changes in education. Not maybe in the US, especially the next 3 years, but in general. It would be
yeah,
very interesting to see how that works out.
yeah, 100%. I have so many thoughts um, about what you just shared. Um, hold on, I want to, yeah. Oh man, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I think, first of all, yes, like I think regardless of the AI being an issue or not, smaller class sizes are often an effective way to improve learning outcomes. And so much of the challenge of teaching is just the logistical hurdle of like we have way too many kids. We're asked to do way too much with way too little time and inopportune schedules. Um, and I experienced that as an educator. And you've reminded me the first place my mind went when you said that. Was my last year in the classroom. I changed the way I taught, and I used this system called the Modern Classrooms Project. I would encourage you to Google it. Um, but part of what I loved about Modern Classrooms was that it was a restructuring where kids self-pace through your curriculum, and a lot of the assessment that's happening is a one-on-one conversation that you're having with the kid, and it really changed the way that I taught for the better. And I love everything about Modern Classrooms Project. Now that is a massive that's a huge commitment to like just casually suggest to you because it's like a huge change in pedagogy and it would be a massive lift. But just it was really instrumental for me. And then the Socratic part of what you're talking about, I'm actually going to talk about here in a second. Because I do think one of the layers going forward is going to be more oral assessment of students. And there's a tool I really love called Snorkel that does a really great job of helping a teacher scale oral assessment because obviously we can't schedule one-on-one conversations with all of our students when we teach 120 kids a day. So paradoxically, it's using AI to like transcribe student oral recordings and then give feedback on those oral recordings. And then you can listen back to those. If we have time tonight, I'll demo it. I don't know if we're going to, but Snorkel is a really cool tool I would put on your radar. Um, and now, I'm sorry, you've spurred a lot of thoughts. Parad the fact that we are talking about assessing written language through spoken language um, is a paradox, and also I think speaks to how AI is devaluing traditional literacy in ways that we're not going to have time to talk about, and I could go down a rabbit hole for a long time. But the written word is being devalued, I think, by AI. I think that's one of the massive downsides. I know that's a charged thing to say, and I would encourage you to disagree with me, but I've gone on too long of a tangent. I appreciate you sharing that, Debbie. No, there's no apologize. You do not need to apologize. It's a good thing. But anyway, going back to the assessment layering, I think this is an effective way to think about assessment going forward. What those layers look like will look different depending on your context. How many layers there are will be different. But just thinking about it through layering, I think will be important. If you want to learn more about the Swiss cheese model, this is from Phil Dawson. He does amazing work on academic integrity. This is a podcast where I first heard it, so that's linked here. Okay. So what are the best layers moving forward? Well, I've already mentioned one. I think oral assessment, and there's a tool called Snorkel that can scale up oral assessment really well. Snorkel is one of my favorite tools in the world right now, aside from Short Answer, the platform we're building. And I will promote it anytime I can get a chance because I think it's doing something really novel and cool with AI. Um, and that's just thinking about assessment through more oral assessment. But then I think in the context of writing, I think doing more synchronous. Um, I know Jessica Bench, who's an online educator, is going to hate me saying this, but more in the classroom writing, and also writing that's happening across the curriculum. I think that's a more holistic change that needs to happen. Writing across the curriculum has been advocated for a long time, but it's been really challenging to pull off because teachers outside of ELA and social studies context don't necessarily feel comfortable teaching writing or embedding it in their content area. It often feels like one more thing. But that said, Like if you look at the research on writing across the curriculum, it's one of the most effective ways to improve literacy outcomes in a district. So it's always been valuable. I just think it's more valuable now more than ever because I do think AI is going to result in kids getting less writing practice. And so we're going to need to make up for those lost practice reps by embedding it across the curriculum. And so that's partly why we're building short answer. Um, I know many of you in this room might be familiar with short answer, but for those that aren't, I want to do just a quick demo with you. So if you're at a computer, I would really appreciate you going to myshortanswer.com. Looks like this, although yours won't have these bubbles at the top because that's my login information to this website. And then I'm going to have you click join activity, the big orange button. And I tell you what, I'll just get signed in. I can actually put it in the chat and it'll just automatically sign you in. Okay. Um, and I tell you what, I always do this one, or if your classroom were a reality TV show, what would it be called and why? But I'm going to do a different one today. So, for those that don't know, short answer is just short form gamified writing. I'd rather just jump into it so you can like experience it. We'll do a little sixth grade. Let's do a describe the picture scenario. Let's do this one. Okay, got it here. And now I'm going to launch it. Okay, we have a bunch of activities in the platform, but again, they're all built to be short form, social, fun writing activities that you could embed in any content area to get more targeted writing practice happening in the classroom as one of those layers that I'm talking about. So I'm going to do quick write. And then I'll just leave these. Well, I'll throw these up. No, that's fine. Okay, let's let you. So I'll put this link in the chat. If you click the link, ooh, and Alexa, thank you for sharing all these things that we were talking about. I'm just now seeing you sharing all these amazing things. The link in the chat will automatically sign you into this activity. And go ahead and respond to it. So you climb up a ladder into a village hidden among the treetops, like the one in the photo, which is here, and you can click on that. Connected by rope bridges and glowing lanterns. What does the air smell like? What kind of people or creatures live here? Describe the feeling of walking across the bridges. In the name of time, I'm going to challenge you to do all that in maybe one or two sentences. But this is just like this is maybe like elementary/middle school creative writing task. So maybe not relevant for your content area, but you can create this prompt and make it whatever you want. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So go ahead and type your response. And I'll stop talking because it's not necessarily good pedagogy for me to talk while you're trying to write. So just to give you a sense from a classroom management perspective, in short answer, kids sign in with a code like you just did. There's no account creation. And then I can monitor, so I can see little snippets of your text lighting up here. I can see the number of words you've written. I can see who's submitted and who hasn't. I can click in and see what has been written thus far. If I see something that I don't like, I can pause a student. So let's say Jessica is going off the rails. I can pause that student. And now I can go have a conversation with Jessica if I need to. So there's some classroom management things happening on my end. Okay. I can see that Eileen, Debbie, and Michaela have submitted. If I wanted to, I could click in and see what they've submitted. And if I wanted them to keep writing, I could click this three dot and click send the response back to the student and then ask them, it'll pop up a little message. It's like, hey, Mr. Sparks wants you to keep writing. So just to make you aware of some of the classroom management things that are happening here. Okay. I know I'm totally rushing you. I would, if this were a classroom setting, I'd give you more time to do your writing, but because this is a demo, I'm gonna move a little faster. So go ahead and submit your writing if you haven't. And even if you don't, when I click begin feedback, it'll automatically pull through your writing regardless. Um, but all short answer activities are structured very similarly. Students will sign in and do their writing. And then the next chunk will be AI and peer feedback. It'll depend on the activity you chose. And then the final chunk is like review and discuss and reflect your feedback on your feedback. So it's like write, get feedback, discuss. In this case, it's going to give you AI feedback. So I'm going to click this. You probably can't hear it because I don't think Zoom is going to share my audio, but there's like dramatic music playing. And then on your student screens now, I'm regretting not creating my own fake one so I could show it to you. But there will be a little piece of, you'll see your writing off to the side on the left. And then on the right, you'll see your AI feedback with uh, uh, a proficiency score. So you need to read through that feedback and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you agree with it or disagree with it. And then it will pop up your next chunk of feedback. That feedback is going to be focused on, we only had one success criteria, which was, and so I probably should have shared this with you up front, but we were focusing on writing with rich sensory details. Okay. So I can see Eileen, Jessica, Alexa, Debbie, everybody submitted their reflection. Okay, great. We did our writing. We got immediate feedback. If we want to talk about the utility of AI, I think this is an example. Getting kids immediate feedback in the moment, really special and something we couldn't do even just like a few years ago. So I'm going to click show results. And the game of this one is we're going to tally up everybody's proficiency and see if we hit the score goal. Jolly music playing that you can't hear. We did not hit the goal. I'm so sorry. We came very close. I don't know if you heard that, but when we didn't hit the goal, the flag fell down and it was like wah wah wah. Um, so we have options now with Quick Write. Again, this is just one activity of several we have in short answer. If we wanted to end the activity, we could. So if I'm just trying to do this as a bell ringer, just trying to do more daily writing practice, this could be an option. If I want to read responses and like have a class-led discussion, we can do that. If I want to pair everybody up, this will like actually instruct kids to sit together. You can shuffle through groups and then they'll do a prompted like reflection together. And then the most popular, I think, is the revise and resubmit option. And in that one, it'll give you the AI feedback back and your response. And then you can revise it as a student and resubmit it. And then the goal becomes just improving your score from the previous round. So can we get better than 12, basically? So if you wanted to extend this and do these activities, you could, or you can end it right now. Jessica said they begged me for this, which that's a major part of our goal at Short Answer is we want to flip the script so that it's the kids asking you to do the thing rather than you asking the kids to do the thing. Like we want that to be the dynamic because I think special things can happen when kids are asking you and engaged enough to want to do something. I think the challenge with that is like, can you structure a learning experience where that's the dynamic, but is still a cognitively rich and meaningful learning experience? Because there's any number of tools out there that are very, very popular that will get kids excited and get a dopamine release of how quickly can I click this button. But I think from a cognitive and from a learning perspective, I don't think are quite as rich, but they are fun things that kids like doing. I'm hoping that we can build short answer in a way where it's like stuff they like doing but also fun and engaging and motivating. Because something we haven't talked about as much, but I would love to talk more about and just get on my high horse about is like something we need to be deliberate about is um, creating experiences that make writing joyful and fun and something kids want to practice. Because why is a kid going to want to learn how to write in a world where a machine can spit out writing form in 10 seconds? So I think it's a huge challenge. Um, how do you hold on to it from one day to the next to revise over 2 days? So that's a good question, Jessica. And one of the flaws of our platform right now is we don't have student accounts. We made a deliberate choice to do that because we wanted to keep setup easy for teachers. But the downside of that is what the kids would need to do then is export their writing. So in the top right hand corner, there's a three dot menu, and the kids would click export to a docx, and they would save that. And then the next day, you'd have to launch a new activity and just have them copy paste in that revision. When they export it, it will also export the feedback, so that'll live there, so they'll still have that. Um, so that's a good question, Jessica. Sue said, what standards are being used to assess the proficiency? Can teachers load state and school level standards? Um, yes and no. So let me show you. So I'm going to end this activity. It'll do a little, hooray, look how many words we wrote. If I wanted to do another one, I can launch it and keep you all signed in and launch it, or I can remove you and view the results. And then those results will live here on a tab that has the writing and the feedback and all the things. But I want to answer Sue's question because it was a good one. To create an activity like the one I just did, I just click create activity in the top right. And then I'll type in like, this is my question or writing prompt. Okay, what next? I can attach files. So like the last one, we did have a file. We had that little picture of like the sort of like tree house landscape thing. So you can attach files if you want. You can generate scaffolds for students. This is another use case of AI that I think is really cool to quickly generate um, differentiation for students. So if you have students that struggle with getting started with writing, it'll read the prompt and generate sentence stems and outlines kids can use. And then you can edit them to be whatever you want. Okay. And then to finally answer Sue's question, the last part will be setting the success criteria. So this is where you can, if you want to think of it like a rubric, you're setting, it's almost like the column that would be on the right of the rubric that's describing the ideal performance. That's where you would that's what you would set here. And it's the success criteria that you set is what's going to focus AI's feedback in. We don't have rubric scoring where it's going to like give a kid a score of like a 1 to 10 based on the rubric you uploaded. It's always going to follow that very simple beginner, intermediate, advanced labeling system. And that's just going to be based on your success criteria and then whether or not the student's response contained that success criteria fully, partially, or not at all, basically. So you can make these success criteria whatever you want. So in this case, it might be clear description, or like let's do like a clear CER. This is a common use case. Um, Structure, and so then it's like the paragraph had a clear claim, 3 pieces of evidence, and strong reasoning. I'll create that and set it. And then now that's what's either going to focus AI's feedback if we do an AI feedback activity, or that's what's going to be the focus of the students if they do a peer-to-peer activity. They'll judge and provide feedback on each other's responses, focusing on that success criteria. And then I would create an exit. So good question, Sue. I hope that answers the question. Debbie says, "Amen. Preach. Motivation moving forward is amazing." Yeah, I think motivation is going to be really. It's always been important, but and also really challenging. But I think in a writing context, the most effective way to motivate a kid is to create an authentic audience for their work. Of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write something. I'm going to share it. My classmates are going to see it. Oh my goodness. um, it's scary. And we do it in a way that is hopefully less scary because it's anonymous in our peer-to-peer activities. But I just think that creating something and sharing it with your classmates and seeing how they react is just inherently engaging for kids and intrinsically motivating in ways that I think are really healthy. Um, Yes, Jessica, good question. I think the only reason I got approval for short answer this year was one, it's free, and two, there are no student accounts. Yes, thank you for calling that out, Debbie. A big part of the reason that we chose to not have student accounts is because from a data privacy perspective, it really simplifies things for school districts. We're trying to err on the side of making it simple for teachers. Um, and then Jessica said no. So Jessica was asking about can the kids upload the document? They would have to manually copy paste in their response to a new activity. That's a good question. Um, Michaela asked, I love the short answer tool. I think it's great for exposing my lower level students to good examples of writing. With Battle Royale, that's another activity, yes. I once used this tool, was so exciting about using it. We did a Battle Royale and I offered candy. Ultimately, the number one winner used an AI generated response. The kids obviously knew this person and used AI and called the person out in class. I was disappointed and probably wasn't great for the student either. Any ideas on how to avoid this? So there's a few things. While the students are writing their response, you can monitor that in real time and click into it. And so if and when a student submits, so for example, if we're 5 minutes into this writing activity and the student has 2 paragraphs and submitted it like um, before everyone else, maybe you want to click into that, monitor it, Um, give it a quick read through, and then if you suspect AI use, maybe send it back to the student and go have a one-on-one conversation with them. I know that's easier said than done because if you've got a room full of 30 kids, that may be harder to pull off. But some other options are when you launch an activity, so like click Battle Royale next. There's an option here to turn off the ability to copy paste. And so that would limit the student's ability to copy paste any text into the response when they write it. So that could help limit that a little bit too. Another thing that we've tried to do from a classroom management perspective is when the students sign in, and you may have noticed this if you did the demo, it'll automatically pull up the screen full screen. So you can set the expectation if you don't want them using any outside source, like you should not be like leaving that. I shouldn't see you in other tabs. I should just see the full screen short answer on your screen. Again, I know that's not perfect. It's more of like a classroom management thing, but hopefully that's helpful. And then the only other thing I would say is, Michaela, I think that that experience like actually opens up an interesting way, and I know it could be challenging um, for those students, but like to me, that opens up an interesting little sandbox where we can have a conversation about AI use and like why did you use this first of all, and then as a class, why did you upvote this? Like, did you just do it because you thought it was funny, or did you do it to like, yeah, like why did you do this? And could be a challenging conversation, but could also be an interesting one, I think. Um, so I hope that answers the question, Michaela, and I'm sorry you experienced that. Um, can we export the data? So Sue, you can export responses if you have, this is a premium feature, just full transparency. When you create an activity, you'll have free premium access for the first 40 days. But like, let's say, here's a demo I did the other day. When I click export results, I can export it to a CSV or a docx file. So if you wanted to do some proficiency tracking on different activities, you could do it there. But I would also say it's on our product roadmap going forward that we want to have some at least class level proficiency tracking. So we are headed in that direction, but we're not there yet. But we're very much building the plane while we're flying it. Yes. I appreciate all the kindness, Jessica, and the QA. Yeah, looks like a cool tool. Looking forward to extending. Yes. Yeah. And if you do use it, we would love your feedback on it. So I appreciate all the comments and questions in the chat. Um, we have a bunch of activities. That was just quick, right? The best place to learn about all the new activities that we have are in the Learn section, and you can actually preview and see how all these different sections of the app work. But they're sorry, these different activities within the app work. But we're coming up on time, so I want to respect that. We're not going to have time to demo all these, unfortunately, but check them out in the Learn section. And Short Answer is a free platform, or the base version is free, and then we have premium offerings. So it's something that you can try out and use in your classroom tomorrow. Um, Yes. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to quickly go back here. But again, if I want to go back to where we started this conversation, it was just thinking about writing assessment through the lens of layering, and one of those layers doing more synchronous in-class writing with your students to develop foundational writing skills and embed that across the curriculum. That's a major reason why we're building Short Answer. Another layer, I wish we had time to demo. Check it out. It's one of my favorite tools. It's called Snorkel. It's a great tool for oral assessment as well, as one of those layers. Um, these are all short answer tips. So if you try, I think it's most of this is self-explanatory, but I'd encourage you to check out these slides on how to use short answer. So in review, AI detection software doesn't work. Don't use it, or at least I would recommend not using it. Academic integrity is a learning outcome we should teach kids. For a syllabus policy, I like AI assessment scales and specifically the stoplight labeling system. AI Trust You is a great tool for communicating your expectations with students, as is revision tracking, although that's crumbling because of tools like Comet and ChatGPT Agent and agentic browsers. So I think moving forward, assessment layering is going to be important. And for me, more in-class writing, writing across the curriculum, and oral assessment are really effective layers for you. Okay. So I hope you feel you leave this very condensed and quick workshop feeling more in control in your writing classroom. I know it's certainly nothing here is perfect, but in combination, if you can walk away with at least one thing to help you adjust the way you approach writing instruction, I think we've been successful. Um, oh, I saw a hand go up and then I lost it. But anyway, I hope this was useful. Here's all my follow-up information. So please, there's the slides. I've already shared them in the chat. There's my email. That's all my Calendly. If you want to meet one-on-one, those are our social media handles. That's our Facebook community. That's my Substack. Please follow up with us and we can come back for more webinars. We lead one every quarter. and try to do them at the intersection of AI and writing instruction. Um, and yeah, if you want to hang around and ask questions, I would appreciate you doing that. But otherwise, I appreciate you joining tonight, and I hope this was useful for you. And yeah, this was great.